Hello, John Dove here from the Advocacy Club. We've just had the debating session in April, and it's been an interesting topic tonight. Those at the club have been debating board games versus video games, which is better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just share some feedback with regard to debating. I'm going to start by talking about general presentation skills, though, because a debate is a form of public speaking. So you need to get the basics right with regard to your public speaking so that you can present a coherent and a persuasive argument. So in terms of just the general points, the first thing is you need to think about your salutation and how you're actually going to start. So first things first is just to say which side you're on. So you'll say whether you are going to be supporting the motion or whether you're going to be opposing the motion. And then from there, you'll jump in with a bit of an introduction from there. So just as with most things, as with most forms of public speaking, you have sort of an introduction, main body, and a conclusion. And in other words, it's basically tell people what you're going to tell them, and then tell them again in the conclusion. And a debate, a good structure for a debate, I think, is no different. So you might have a quick sentence at the beginning just to say, I'm going to be making 3 points, and these are. So a nice little introduction. I mention this all the time, but really think about your pace, because a lot of us, particularly people like me, speak quite quickly in everyday life. So when it comes to your debate, make sure that you're speaking at a nice slow pace. Think about 100 to 120 words is about right. So if you're doing a 5-minute debate like you would be doing so in our session, you'd be talking somewhere in the region of about 500 to 620 words for your overall presentation. And speaking slowly is important because it makes you appear a lot more confident in what you're saying, but B, it also allows your judges, if you've got a judge in a debate, to follow exactly what it is that you're saying, because if you speak too quickly and they miss points, well, you might miss marks if you're being judged in a debate. So really think about keeping that pace nice and slow. But at the same time, you don't want to be boring. A boring presentation is not a persuasive presentation. So think about ways that you can make your presentation dynamic. And various ways that you can do that is to alter the pitch and pace of your voice. So you notice that I don't tend to speak in one sort of flat monotone voice. I like to change it up. I like to speak a bit louder at certain points. I can make it a bit quieter, and it just makes whomever you're speaking to sit up and take notice. It just makes it that little bit more interesting. So varying the pitch and pace is absolutely crucial to make your presentation interesting. Now, coming back to the structure, I mentioned that you'd have a bit of an introduction where you'll say these are going to be my points. When you're moving on to the main body of your debate, think about how many points you're actually going to make. So you don't want to be making too many points that you can't deal with them in any depth whatsoever. So for argument's sake, in a debate like this one, whereby you've got 5 minutes, I would say 2 to 3 points is about right, really, because with 2 to 3 points, that means that you can be spending somewhere between 90 seconds to 2 minutes or so on each point, and you can really develop them and really go into a little bit of detail. Whereas if you tried to make 8 or 9 points in a 5-minute debate, you're gonna literally scratch the surface. It's going to be headlines, and there's going to be no substance to what you're saying. So think about your time limit, think about how much time you have, and really tailor that so you know how many points you are going to be making. So as I say, 2 to 3 would be on the money for something like this. And then in terms of the structure, what I would tend to do is start with your strongest point and then work backwards. So strongest, next strongest, weakest, etc. Because if you start with your weakest point, if somebody's not with you, particularly whomever it might be judging the debate, you've lost them at the start. And then to move on to a stronger point seems a little bit counterintuitive. So start with your strongest points first. I think that's probably the best way to tackle this and to approach this. Now, as with anything, there's two sides to any argument, two sides to any debate. And of course, your opponent will be raising some good points. And generally, the strong points that they will be raising, naturally, they're going to be the weaknesses in your argument. So think about those. Think about where the weaknesses lie in your side of the debate, and think about where the strengths lie in your opponent's side of the debate, and deal with those in your arguments. It might be that they are two sides of the same coin, and you can say, well, my opponent will say, and you may think, however, the stronger argument is, and talk about ways that your argument knocks down their strongest points, as it were. So deal with that rather than ignore it, because you know that your opponent will be dealing with their strongest points in their argument. Whenever you're making a point as well, if you've got something to back up your points, rely upon it. So if you've got any evidence that can back up what you're saying, if you've got statistics, if there are studies, anything like that that you can back up your point, so it's got authority and it gives it a little bit of substance, and it makes your argument that much more stronger. Use that evidence within your debate. It backs it up and it makes it a concrete argument. You also have the opportunity for a rebuttal in this as well. So we made it quite short, 2 minutes of rebuttals for this particular debate. Treat your rebuttal as sort of a mini speech. So don't just sort of go off the cuff and just go, and this and this and this. Treat that as a little mini speech in and of itself. So you might have found 2 points that your opponent has raised that you want to counter, and you'll say, now going to raise the rebuttals on behalf of the proposer. My opponent has raised these 2 points, and I will deal with them in detail, in order, and then point 1, point 2, and then a quick summary as to why your argument is then stronger. So you can see how there's sort of a mini structure to that mini speech there. And then lastly, keep it simple. So try and keep the language as simple as possible, because A, it makes it easier for you to present, and B, a simple argument is a logical argument, and it's therefore easier to follow. So sometimes simplicity can be the order of the day. So I hope you found those tips helpful.